starting a new series, although this will be a little different. I don't know. It's just it's called "Who Needs Christmas." Who needs Christmas? We borrowed a lot of this from North Point Community Church. Andy Stanley down in Atlanta area, Greater Atlanta. I never take full credit for my messages. A lot of times I don't know where some of this stuff comes from. Sometimes I do. And so, but today you're not going to get your typical 3 points in a poem type deal, and maybe not for the next few weeks. But I want to share one point with you. Is that all right? One point, and that's God's plan for Christmas. Who needs Christmas? I'll tell you who needs Christmas. The world needs Christmas. And so, I've always loved the Christmas season. I just always really enjoy it. And as I get older, maybe not quite as much, but I like getting together with family. I like eating. I like catching up. Seeing some of those distant relatives maybe that we don't see normally, and I like giving and receiving gifts. I enjoy that, and I enjoy the special worship, the Christmas specials, the music, the Christmas shows on television. I like some of those. I'm crazy over them. I love y'all. But how many of you just love this time of year? Raise your hand. How many of you just don't love this time of year? Any of those in here? Yeah, I see a few. So I bet I know why some of you don't like this time of year. There's things I don't like about it too. I'm not a fan of the over-commercialization. It just drives me nuts. I walked into Walmart on Halloween night and they're putting out the Christmas stuff. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Stop! That's what I wanted to say. Halloween's not even over. I've not even bought my Halloween stuff yet. It's like, maybe it's the day after Thanksgiving or Halloween. I don't remember exactly, but you know how it is. I don't like the crowded shopping centers. It drives me nuts. The opening and shopping on Thanksgiving Day, just it's not a big fan, and I don't like the drive that takes an hour that usually only takes 15 minutes, I'm not a big fan of that. How many of you feel me on that one? You know what I'm talking about, I'm not a fan of the things that take our attention away from Christ. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of the elf on the shelf. If you don't do it, it's okay if you do. Hey, no biggies. I'm just not a fan. Where'd that come from anyway? Anybody know? I don't know where that came from. You may not like this type of season because of Cousin Eddie. You got one of them, right? And in my family, I am Cousin Eddie, so hey, it's so I don't worry about that. I did not do that, by the way. Some people despise this time of year because of many of those things. It's the hustle and bustle, the things that drive you nuts. Trying to find, you can go to a different slide now. The thing that drives you nuts, the things that just drive you crazy, the gifts you can't find that you need or you want to get for someone. Not knowing what to get for someone, just all that, it drives you crazy sometimes. And for a lot of folks, it's just not fun. Christmas is just not fun. I remember one of my saddest moments at Christmas. I don't know how old I was. I guess I was probably close to the age of Kobe inside. I might be 8 or 9, somewhere around there. And I remember on Christmas Day going to my grandparents' house, and I asked my grandfather, I was excited. I said, "Are you not excited? It's Christmas Day, And he responded, "It's just another day to me, son." And when he said that, I remember thinking, how sad. And that's how I felt. I thought, I feel sorry for him. Why? It'll just be another day. It's Christmas. And so, for that reason, a lot of people, just because all these things, are like, who needs Christmas? We can do without Christmas. They're tired of all those things that sap everything that's right out. You know, they're just tired of those things. Who needs it? I'll tell you who needs Christmas. The world needs Christmas. That's it. The world needs Christmas. And, you know, the truth is, we don't need the commercialization. You know, we don't need that. We don't need the elf on the shelf. We don't need the trees. We don't need the presents. Or even Santa. We don't need any of those things. But we do need Christmas. And we do need Christmas because Christmas is the story of how God became a man. Born as a baby to live a sinless life. And die on the cross so that you and I can be delivered from our sins and become a part of the eternal family of God. That, my friends, is what Christmas is all about. That's what we need. That's what Christmas is. And so all this other stuff has just been added on throughout the years. This is what Christmas is about. We need to remember that, you know. And so we think about Christmas, and you know, we start planning what to do, the music, the teaching, the preaching, whatever. You know, we go back and we want to think. Maybe you think about, well, when did Christmas begin? You know, where do you start? If you're going to teach about Christmas, where does it all start? And you know, if you go chronologically in the Gospels, you go back to Matthew chapter 1. You know, you got the genealogy, and then I think in chapter 2 the story begins, and then Luke chapter 1, you know, you get the visits from the angels, and then and so on, and you go there. But Mark and John, they don't really have anything about the birth of Jesus. Kind of oddly, right? But you know, that's really not where the Christmas story begins. And you know that the Christmas story really begins in the heart and mind of God before creation, really. You know, if you want to go back, and that's where it all begins. And it doesn't begin with this young couple who were pregnant and wondering what the world was going on. And it doesn't begin there. Listen, an all-knowing God planned all of this. Omniscient God, He planned Christmas from the very beginning. And you know, He first hints about Christmas in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. I've shared this with you before. Hopefully you can see it there on the screen. But after the fall of Adam and Eve, when Adam and Eve had fallen into sin, and God was pronouncing the curse of sin upon them, when He got to the serpent, He told the serpent this. He said, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring, and he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. And so, what this is called the proto-evangelium. Y'all want to write that down? But basically, it's just a big fancy word that means the first occurrence of the good news. That's what it means. The first hint of the good news. Proto-evangelium. If you want to spell it, I can Google it for you and show you how to spell it. I'm not sure I get it right without looking. But anyway, so it's the first hint of the gospel. And what is going on here is basically God is telling the serpent, He says, look, this is 2,100 years before the birth of Jesus. It's a word that prophesies the coming of the one who would defeat the enemy. It's about a man, a descendant of Eve, and who would bruise the head of the serpent with his heel. It's a reference to the Messiah, the Christ, who in a word talks about how he would be the one who would defeat the enemy, the evil one, the deceiver, and how he would defeat sin. And you know, Jesus did that when He stepped out of the grave. He stepped on the head of sin and the devil with His heel and bruised all of what the evil one wanted to do to destroy us. And so it began there. You see, the hint of Christmas comes here. It begins here. But the next thing you see about Christmas really is in Genesis chapter 12. And y'all have heard this story before. If you turn to Genesis chapter 12, you know, you read about this couple. But this couple isn't a young couple who find themselves pregnant and wondering how they've got pregnant. This is about an old couple who thought they would never be pregnant and never have any children. And to them, God made a promise about Christmas. Did you know that? In Genesis chapter 12, God made a promise to this couple about Christmas. 2,100 years or so, like 2,090 years, I think is a close estimate. But here in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, we see this. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your kindred and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. Remember this? And then he says, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. And he says, and I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And look at this. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. You see that? It's Christmas. Y'all see it? It's Christmas he's talking about. This is a promise made to Abram, right? We know this is a man who will become Abraham. And God tells Abraham, he says, you know, in the country of Ur of the Chaldees and Haran, and we've talked about this throughout Hebrews, he told Abraham, he said, leave all that behind and go to this place that I will show you. And so, you know, here Abraham is. I mean, this is a crazy ask. We talked about this. This is a crazy ask because all Abraham's security was found in his homeland, right? I mean, his family is there, all his friends are there, his means of earning is there, you know. And so God says, hey, Abraham, get everything you got and go to this place. Start traveling, and I'll tell you when you get there. And especially in this day, when Abraham lived, look, it was dangerous to travel. You think it's dangerous to travel now? You know, it was dangerous to travel in the days of Abraham. Almost everyone who traveled very long distances got robbed and often killed. You know? That's a pretty high percentage, you know, almost everyone. It's not quite that high today, except for maybe in a few remote areas that we never go to, right? But anyway, you know, it was crazy. Traveling was extremely dangerous. And to travel and not even know where you're going, that makes it even crazier. But God asked Abraham to do this, or he tells him to do this. And when you look in verses 2 and 3, we see that God tells Abraham, he says, I'm going to make you a great nation. You see that? God's making these promises to Abraham, and he says he's going to make his name great. And Abraham was probably like, God, a great nation? You're going to make me a great nation? Look, I'm settled for being a great grandpa right now. I don't even have any kids. You know, just give me a son. You're going to make me a great nation? I don't know how this is going to be possible, Lord. You know, but this is what God was telling me. You can imagine the things that was going through his mind. But then he says he's going to make his name great. And basically when he says that, he's telling him that, you know, Abraham, I'm going to make you famous. Your name, everybody's going to know your name. You're going to be a superstar, you know? Not just here and now, but I mean a worldwide superstar forever, I guess, you know? And so Abraham thought, man, you know, how's my name going to be great? I'm leaving everybody that knows me. If I do what you tell me to do, Lord, I'm leaving all my family and friends. If I go, nobody in the world will probably even ever remember me. Because everybody that knows me is right here. You know, it probably didn't make a whole lot of sense, you know. But the promise continues, and God tells Abraham, and he says, you will be a blessing. You see that? And he says, and all people will be blessed through you. Basically, he's saying everyone on the planet will be blessed by you and your name. And this promise would have probably been a bit weird for Abraham, because in their culture and context, you know, they really didn't have nations back then like we have now. There was these tribes of peoples, you know, that grew, and they got larger and larger. And a lot of times they would go over and they didn't bless the neighboring tribe. They conquered the neighboring tribe, took all their stuff, and, you know, and put leaders in there and took over that place. You know, that's the way it went. They didn't bless them, you know, they blessed them real good, you know, I guess is the way some people would say it. You know, they'd take all their stuff. But that's what they did. And so, but God says, look, I want you to bless other nations. And this word nations, you know, it's a word that means ethnos. Basically, it means every people group, different ethnic peoples. And so, it's often how it's translated. And so, you know, but they would raid and conquer and divide each other and kill each other and pillage, and they'd take everything they had. To bless another people group is just utterly unthinkable, really. But you know what happened? God made all this promise to Abraham, some crazy things he asked him to do here. And you know what happened, right? Y'all been here before. Abraham believed God, didn't he? He trusted God. And he did what God told him to do. He believed the unbelievable. And y'all know the story. You know, we're just going to do a quick rush through history here. Abraham and Sarah eventually had a son, didn't they? In their old age, they had a son, and they named him Isaac. Laughter, right? Remember that? And then Isaac had two sons, Esau and Jacob. Remember that? We've talked about all this a lot through Hebrews. And remember Jacob, although he was born a little bit later, they were twins, but he was born 4 months later, he received the birthright and the blessing, didn't he? You know, trickery and all this stuff. We're not going to get into all that. But the divine plan of God, Jacob was the blessed one. And Jacob, eventually, he has 12 sons. And his name is changed to Israel. And so these are the 12 tribes of Israel. These 12 sons they're part of the 12 tribes, as we know. And as we saw in Hebrews, two of Joseph's sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, become two tribes of Israel. And Joseph then is not. And so, anyway, there's some moving around things with that, but that's not what this is about. But one of Israel's sons was Joseph, right? Y'all remember this story, Joseph. And Joseph was one of his sons by his favorite wife. And, and one day, the other 11 sons, well, not 11, 10 of the sons, they got out there and they threw Joseph down a deep well. Remember the story? And Joseph's down in this deep well, and they're going to leave him there to die, but there's this caravan that comes by, and they decide, hey, make a little side money. They just sell him to this caravan, and they take Joseph down to Egypt. And he's sold as a slave, and he becomes a slave in Egypt. But in Egypt, right, Joseph rises to power, where he's basically second in command over Egypt, but he's been given pretty much all authority over Egypt. And, because Joseph's there's a famine in the land, and all of his family, his other 11 brothers and all their families, and Jacob and their whole family, they're about to starve to death, and they come down to Egypt, and they're saved because Joseph's there, right? Y'all know how they got there, remember? They come down, and instead of going back to the land that God led Abraham to, they stay. And when they go down, there's about 75 men, I believe is how you number it. And so, I don't know how many altogether there would have been, but, I'd say it'd be safe to say at least 200 or so maybe altogether. And so that's how many went down into Egypt. But they lived there for several hundred years in Egypt. I think it's 400 years that they're there. I may be wrong, but I'm just guessing right now because I didn't have it in my notes. But they're there for several hundred years. And then, and they're a nation. They grow to a multitude, tens or hundreds of thousands, really. They're numbered later, and there's a little bit of discrepancy about how many there might have been, but maybe up to 1 million people that are living there, Israelites, living in Egypt, but they're slaves. They become a nation of people. So one of God's promises seems like it's being fulfilled, right? But they're sort of like a nation, but they're a slave nation. They're captive. So what kind of nation is that? I mean, they're enslaved people. And is this what God promised them? I mean, that had to be going through their mind. Because all this time, they would have known, right? They would have known about the promise of Abraham, to Abraham by God, that God was going to bless Abraham and make him a great nation and make his name great and to use his descendants to bless the whole world. They would have known all about that. But here they are, a slave nation in Egypt, incapable of blessing themselves, much less other nations. So here they are. I mean, they're desperate, and they don't feel very blessed. Don't have any capacity to bless anybody else. So you know what God does? He sends them a deliverer, doesn't he? What's his name? Moses. Moses raised in the courts of Pharaoh, right? just throw this out there a little extra. They had tennis in the Bible, right? Did y'all know that? They had tennis in the Bible because Moses served on Pharaoh's court. But anyway, Moses was raised. If you didn't get it, just send me later. We'll laugh then. Moses was raised an Egyptian, but he was Hebrew, right? And he killed one of the Egyptians. He was out 40 years, but then God brings Moses back, and he leads the people of Israel, the descendants of Abraham, out of Egypt, doesn't he? And you know what? When Moses comes, and when he gets through with all the things, when God gets done with all the things he does through Moses to Egypt, the Egyptians, that other nation besides the Israelites, they don't feel very blessed by the Egyptians either, do they? Because, God just flat, judges them because of their reluctance to let his people go. And so they're not feeling very blessed. But they make their way out, they make their way through the Red Sea. They spend 40 years in the wilderness, and they finally make it back across the Jordan River into Canaan, that promised land. The promised land, there where all the Canaanites dwell, where God wants them to settle. And, when they go into Canaan, God commands them to take over these cities, to kill everything and everybody nearly, and they start doing all that, and God's judgment is being poured out on all these unbelieving nations within Canaan, and so they didn't feel very blessed by the people of Abraham either, did they? They weren't blessing them. And so even though now they're a free nation, they're going back into their land, and God had told them to take their cities and their land, and that's really not the way to bless other people. And much of that, a lot of times, and I hear this a lot of times people wonder, well, how in the world could our God of the New Testament lead them to do that, And I admit sometimes it's difficult to try to explain, but they're on the other side of Christmas. It's a completely different way of life. This was what took place back then. It was the norm. The wars and just the way things happened. And it was God's promise, and this was all part of God's plan. And you know what? This is one thing I always try to remind us of is that there's a judgment day coming for everyone. And God's in control of when that takes place. So that's why it's imperative for us to believe and follow Him now. Because we don't know when that day's coming. And so there is a judgment for everyone, and the wages of sin is death. And so we can't, it's difficult, but we're on this other side of Christmas. God used these events to ultimately fulfill His promise to Abraham. And so here they are. They settle into Canaan, and they disperse. And after about 1,000 years of living there in the promised land, the people finally became a kingdom. They became known as the Kingdom of Israel. And eventually King David became king, probably one of the most famous kings of Israel. And under the leadership of David, David was a warrior king. He was a great military leader. They conquered a lot of the surrounding nations, but they showed a lot of mercy a lot of times. And he developed a lot of peace treaties with all those nations and around him, and when they conquered. And so the descendants of Abraham now under the reign of King David were finally, it seemed like, in a position where they could bless the whole world. Finally fulfill that promise that God made to Abraham. They're getting to be a larger nation. They've got a land. They've got a king. They've got some wealth. They've got a little bit of influence right around their region. And so it's kind of taking place. And one of King David's sons, King Solomon, then took over. And King Solomon, was known as one of the wisest men who ever lived. And not only that, but he was a builder, and he built these majestic buildings, and he built the temple, and it was just a sight. All the gold and all the things that they did there. They were just these fabulous structures, and not only that, but he expanded the kingdom of Israel and its influence to the ends of the known world. And he became famous and well known, and people from all over the world would come to Israel to sit at the feet of Solomon and to learn from his wisdom, and to see all the wondrous things that he had built. You know, kings would come, and they were really wealthy and really influential, and it looked like finally they were destined to fulfill God's promise to bless other nations. Here they are, they're a nation now, and sure they're going to bless other people. But you know what? Y'all know what happened? How many of you know what happened? Anybody know what happened? Solomon, although he was wise, he made a lot of dumb decisions. He married a lot of foreign women. 300 wives, 700 concubines, right? And the biggest thing wasn't that he took so many foreign wives, but you know what he did? He worshipped the gods of these foreign women. And so God had told Solomon that if he went after other gods, that his temple would be torn down and the kingdom would be destroyed and divided. And so shortly after Solomon died, guess what happened? The kingdom split, and the opportunity to bless all these other nations dwindled away. The kingdom was divided into two. It wasn't exactly two equal parts, but the northern part of the kingdom was known as Israel, and the southern part of the kingdom was known as the kingdom of Judah. And so now we got two kings, right? Two armies, and then so two economies, and all this stuff, and so it weakens them as a people, really. And so it's not quite what Abraham had envisioned, I'm sure. But after about 300 years of this, the northern kingdom was invaded by Assyria. The Assyrians came in, they completely took over, and what they would do is they would come in and they would take all the people of influence, the royalty or the governors and all the leaders, and they would capture them. A lot of times they would kill them, and they would take them back to their land, and they would replace them with Assyrian leaders, and then they would send in a whole bunch of their people to try to populate the area, to disseminate all that was there. And so this is what began to happen. Then Judah, the southern kingdom, it starts imploding. And they're on the verge of invasion from Assyria, and they know it. There's probably nothing they can do about it. And so everything's chaotic. They're worried. They're afraid. They don't know what to do. The army's dwindling away. The economy's about to die. And here we have the descendants of Abraham, and they can't even bless themselves, much bless any other nation. Here they are. They're in dire straits. They're in a terrible place. But they still remember this promise of Abraham. And they're probably like, and you know what? God sends somebody to them. He sends a prophet named Isaiah. And Isaiah comes to them during this time and speaks for God. And in Isaiah chapter 49, and the last part of verse 6, Isaiah says this for the Lord. The Lord says, I will make you as a light for the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. You see that? More promises. I'm going to make you a light. Now that would be a blessing. They could bless other nations this way. God says, I'm going to make you a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. And they're thinking, this prophet, he's come, he said, God reminds them he's going to do something through them so they can be a light to the world. This comes at a time when they don't even have oil to light their own lamps. They don't even have a light of their own. But God's telling them they're going to be a light to the ends of the earth. They're under the control of others, ultimately enslaved in their own homes. And God says through them, His salvation will reach the ends of the earth. Wow. But they couldn't even save themselves, if they wanted to. God's going to use them to take His salvation to the ends of the earth. Not long after this prophecy, the southern kingdom of Judah then is taken over by the Assyrians, just like the northern kingdom. And so the whole state becomes even worse. 300 years or so pass by. We're going quickly. But and then the Babylonians, they're under the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. This is all historical, but it's all in the Bible. The Babylonians come in and they take over, and they invade and they destroy everything. They come into Jerusalem. They tear the walls of the temple down. They tear the walls of the city down. They plunder the temple, and and they do the same thing. They take all the best that's there, and they take them back to Babylon. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and all those kinds, and they go back to Babylon. And in the midst of this time, God sends another prophet to them. And God speaks to the prophet Malachi to give them another word of hope. In Malachi chapter 1 and verse 11, I want you to look at this. I love this. God comes to them. I mean, they're not in control of their own destiny, really. Here they are in a pit of misery, dilly-dilly, right? Whatever that commercial is. From the rising of the sun to its setting. Look at this. My name will be great among the nations. And in every place incense will be offered to my name, and a pure offering. For not my name will be great among the nations, says the Lord of hosts. So God says His name's going to be great among the nations. This came at a time when Israel and Judah were a mockery to the other nations. They were weaklings. No other nation looked at them and admired them and said, "Oh man, their God must be mighty. Look at them." No. They weren't interested in that. These were pitiful people who were subjects to others, who had nothing. But yet God comes, sends them a prophet, and gives them these words. And I want you to notice the expanse of God's promise. Look what He says. From where the sun rises to where it sets. This is what that's a long ways, y'all. Did y'all know that? That's pretty much, try to keep up with it one day. When it comes up, just follow it. Right? Maybe in a jet. I don't know. But anyway. It's all encompassing. But look what He says. From where the sun rises to where it sets, God will be worshipped. That's what He's saying. This is the prophecy. Do you see that? This covers the entire planet. People everywhere will worship the God of the Jews. That's the prophecy. That's the word. That's the promise. That's ultimately what God had promised Abraham in a sense. And God's people, listen to this. If you're bowed out, come back with me, all right? It's kind of a summary time. Listen to me. God's people had been taken over by Assyria, by Babylon, by Persia, and soon, at this time, where we are in this chronology, Alexander the Great would make his way from Greece and virtually control the entire world. So Abraham's name may not be great yet, but Alexander's his, right? His name's pretty great. And then in 63 BC, Pompey of Rome will come in and invade and capture Jerusalem. And the things he did, I'm not even going to get into it, but the things he did, it would have been despicable to the Jews, some of the things that he did. But he comes in, he takes over, he conquers Jerusalem, and they annex the entire area. Rome does. And Rome, and all this, the Galilee, Nazareth, Jerusalem, Judea, all this becomes a republic province of Rome. That's what it is. And so it becomes a part of the Roman Empire. And this Roman occupation of the Holy Land that we read about in the New Testament takes place. That's where they are. And this is after biblical. It's a time called the intertestamental period. There's about 300 or 400 years there in between the last words of the Old Testament and the beginning of the New Testament. And all this takes place. And so, listen, from their perspective at that point, the promise of God for the descendants of Abraham to become a nation, that did come true. They could just say, well, let's parse it out. They did become a nation. Not much of one that. But hey. But it looked like God's promise would just end there, didn't it? For many of them, after I'm like, well, it was good while it lasted. Not sure exactly what God meant, but maybe we'll figure it out one of these days or whatever. It didn't look like they had any hope to bless the whole world. No hope for Israel to be a light to the Gentiles like God had promised that they would be. It didn't look like the Jewish God, that there was any way that He would be worshipped from where the sun rises to where the sun sets. None of that seemed like, it just seemed like a fake memory that maybe somebody said something about that stuff. And all of this whole story leading up to the Gospels is what makes Christmas so special. It really is when you think about it. When things seemed so terrible and so hopeless, that was the time that God said, all right, it's time. And He sent the promise. The one from Genesis 3:15. During that time. And all hope probably seemed lost, that the promises would never be fulfilled. It may seem weird because God's people lived in a world that seemed horribly chaotic, but it was just the right time. Apostle Paul writes about this to the churches of Galatia, and he explains it in Galatians chapter 4. He says, but when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth His Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. What I want you to notice here is this fullness of time. The language for this word here, it refers to a specific time. We don't really have a word like this in the English language, but it's a planned time. It's a specific time. The descendants of Abraham may have thought the promises of God were lost, but what we got to understand is God was still at work. You know, it looked like there was no hope. The time was just right for God to send His Son. You know, there were a lot of things during this time that were good for this. Number one, the Romans had built this highway system, the Roman roads, you know, and it made travel throughout the whole known world easier than it had ever been before. And they had this common culture of Rome that everybody kind of knew of, and there were ports now in major cities all over the known world where ships could come in and they could load and unload people and cargo, and travel just became a lot easier. And not only that, but there was a common language. Koine Greek became a known language that nearly everyone knew and used to communicate and to trade and share. And that's what the Greek New Testament was originally written in. And so the Roman rule brought peace between nations that had been at war for generations, generation upon generation. And so now, just at this time, there was a means to transport an important message throughout the world. A message from God that would bless all the nations. See where this is going? Things were just like God wanted them for that time. God's promise was going to be fulfilled in His time. And so here He goes. And so when no one expected it, God sent the angel Gabriel to a town in Nazareth in Galilee. Right? Nobody was looking. And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man. Now everybody knows the name of this virgin, don't they? Everybody knows the name of this woman, don't they? Everybody in the world knows the name of this virgin that He's talking about here. How did that happen? You know, think about it. Listen to me. During the Christmas season today, in 2017, people from where, listen to me, today, people from where the sun rises to where the sun sets knows the name of this virgin. That's right. All over the globe, everywhere you go, people will know the last part of this verse, verse 27. To a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, from the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. In verse 28 it says, and he came to her and he said, greetings, O favored one, the Lord is with you. But she was greatly troubled at the saying, and tried to discern what sort of greeting this might be. And the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will call his name Jesus. And he will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his father David. And he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. And of his kingdom there will be no end. You see? God kept his promise to Abraham. God did exactly what he said he would. Every single nation in the world would be blessed through him. You see, his descendants, they did become a great nation. They did become a light for the Gentiles because of Jesus' birth, because of his life, because of his death and resurrection. The gospel spread throughout the entire known world. People from all over the world, even today, visit Israel to visit this place where all this happened. And the Jewish God would be worshipped throughout the whole world because the Christian God is the God of the Jews, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know? And so the Old Testament is like the womb from which the hope of the world, Jesus, our Savior, bursts forth, and of whose kingdom will endure forever. Now this is the story of Christmas. Think about it. Isn't it astounding, really? It's remarkable when you think about this. But a lot of times I hear people say, oh, I don't believe the Bible. A bunch of men got together one time and just wrote all that down. You're an idiot if you think that. You don't have any understanding of historical reality. You know? I'm sorry, but there's a lot of people who believe this lie. Listen to me, there is no way one man or 100 men or 1,000 men could have got together and made all this up. This story, the history, the way things worked out, no one could have invented all this. Not a man, not a group of men. This story stretched out over thousands of years, and the thread that God was sewing through all of these stories and the people that he was using, a lot of times people couldn't even see where it was. You know, how are they going to make a play on it? They can't even figure out what God's doing. They lost sight of what he was doing. But you know what this is? This is a work of God. All throughout this, God was always working behind the scenes to bring about his plan. So who needs Christmas? God decided the world needs Christmas. And in his time, Christmas came when he was ready, when it was the right time. Through this promised one, Jesus, every tribe, every tongue, every nation, every people all over the earth can be blessed. And through Christmas, we're reminded that God is always at work. He's always, or even when he seems like he's not at work, he's busy, he's working, he's got a plan. And when he seems silent, he's not still. God doesn't operate only where we can see him in the way we want him to, right? And when we want him to. He's got a plan. We need to trust him. And God doesn't just work through nations and groups of people. Did you know that? That's not the only way he works. God works through individuals. And he's not just interested in nations of people and tribes of people. God didn't send his son to be the Savior, just to be the Savior of the world. God sent his son to save you and me. He loves you as a person. God knows just as much about you as he does any nation or any group of people. He loves you as an individual just as he does anyone. This story also reminds us that even when the evidence seems to say that God isn't near, when it seems like God doesn't care, God keeps his promises. God's promises are always true. They may not be like what we think they're going to be. God always does what he says. And so right now, will you trust him? Will you trust God? No. Maybe today you see the miraculous work of God bring redemption for you. Maybe today your world, your personal world is in chaos. You may feel like a prisoner in your own home. You may feel unloved and unblessed and unable to bless others. But let me assure you God loves you, and Jesus came for you, and He died for you, and He calls out to you with a promise to save you, to set you on a solid foundation, and to bless you, and to use you to bless others. That's what God wants to do with you. Will you trust God and give your heart and your mind and your life to Him today? You can do that. You can call out to God and say this: I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I believe that He died on the cross for my sins. I believe He rose from the dead. And Lord, I recognize I'm a sinner, and I need your forgiveness. And I ask you today to save me and to make me a new creature. Come into my heart, my mind, and my life, Lord. The Bible says, whosoever calls on the name of the Lord can be saved. And so right now, if you'll do that, if you believe, listen, you can trust God. He loves you. He died for you. This plan, this was for you. Christmas is for you. The coming of Jesus is for you. Maybe you say, hey, I've already done all that. But, maybe you're filled with doubt and fear and defeat, and you've not been trusting God with your life. You can ask God to forgive you and to use you. You find your gifts and use them to glorify the name of Jesus and let His light shine through your life and help the whole world be blessed through Him. Can you do that? If you've not been doing that, and you're one of His, you can. A lot of times we're too selfish. Our life becomes about us instead of about Him. We allow Christmas to continue to bring God's gift to others through you. Let's do that. Right now, it's a time for us to respond in faith, just as Abraham did a long time ago. Believe God and trust Him. Will you do that right now? Let's bow our heads. As we begin to sing, make your way. We'll pray with you and we'll help you make the decision you need to make today. Father, I come before you this morning, and Lord, we thank you for Christmas. Lord, we thank you today that we understand that even in the midst of life's most terrible circumstances, and when it seems like there's no hope for us, you're at work. And Lord, in fact, you've already done everything we need to have a right relationship with you. So right now, move in the hearts and minds of these people. Lord, call to them. And Lord, I pray that they'd respond to you in faith. In Jesus' name, amen. So let's stand together. The Holy Spirit of God speaking to your heart this morning. Right now is the time to respond in faith. All right, come on.